The warning that changed nothing. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual noise of 1,000 different species trying to talk at once. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the speaking platform, her small human frame looking tiny next to the massive Krillian delegates and the floating gas beings from Nexus Prime. She held a small metal rod in her hand, something that looked completely harmless to everyone watching. "Honored members of the Council," Sarah began, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Humanity requests immediate restrictions on magnetic acceleration weapons technology." A wave of laughter rippled through the hall. The Vorthan High Commander, whose blue skin gleamed under the chamber lights, slammed his massive fist on his desk. "The humans want to ban toys now?" He boomed. "What's next? Shall we outlaw throwing rocks?" Sarah's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "This is not a toy. This is a railgun projectile. When fired from a proper magnetic accelerator, this small piece of metal becomes more dangerous than your largest plasma cannons." More laughter. The Zephyrian delegate, a creature that looked like a walking tree, rustled its leaves in what passed for amusement among its species. "Humans and their primitive kinetic weapons," it whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Still throwing stones like their ancestors." But not everyone was laughing. In the back corner of the hall, Admiral Thex of the Hegemony Fleet watched carefully. His gray, scaled face showed no emotion, but his yellow eyes never left the human ambassador. The Hegemony had been expanding aggressively for decades, and they were always interested in new weapons. Sarah pressed on, even as the noise grew louder. "The mathematics are simple. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. When you accelerate even a small object to a significant fraction of light speed, enough." The council speaker, a massive creature with tentacles instead of arms, waved for silence. "The council has heard humanity's concerns. We appreciate your creative thinking, but magnetic acceleration is hardly new technology. We've been using it for cargo transport for millennia." "Cargo doesn't move at relativistic speeds," Sarah shot back. "What we're proposing, what we've already built, turns physics itself into a weapon." The speaker's tentacles writhed in what might have been irritation. "The motion to restrict magnetic acceleration technology is denied. Humanity may return to its seat." As Sarah walked back to the human section, she caught Admiral Thex's eye. He was smiling now, and that smile made her blood run cold. She had seen that look before, in the eyes of predators who had just spotted easy prey. 3 months later, the first reports started coming in. Hegemony ships had begun attacking outer rim colonies, but something was different about their tactics. Instead of the usual prolonged space battles with energy weapons, fights were ending in minutes. Entire fleets were being destroyed by single shots that seemed to come from impossible distances. Captain Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Force Ship Determination was reviewing these reports when his communications officer interrupted him. "Sir, we're getting a priority message from Earth Command." "Put it through." Admiral Rodriguez appeared on the main screen, her face grim. "Marcus, we're sending you and the Determination to investigate the destruction of New Geneva Colony. The Hegemony hit them 3 days ago, but survivors are reporting weapon signatures that don't match anything in our databases." Marcus leaned forward. "What kind of signatures?" "No energy discharge, no plasma residue, no radiation, just holes. Perfect circular holes punched through ships, stations, even the planet's surface. Whatever they're using, it's something new." But Marcus had a sinking feeling it wasn't new at all. He had been present at that council meeting 3 months ago, had watched Sarah Chen try to warn them about railgun technology. "Admiral, I think I know what we're dealing with." "Then you know we're in trouble," Rodriguez replied. "The Hegemony just declared war on the entire outer rim. They're moving through systems faster than we can track them. At this rate, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 months. Marcus closed his eyes. "They're using our own technology against us." "What?" "The railguns, Admiral. Someone gave the Hegemony our railgun designs." The transmission crackled as Rodriguez processed this information. "That's impossible. Those designs are classified at the highest levels." "Then we have a traitor, or—" Marcus paused as another possibility occurred to him. "Or they figured it out themselves after Ambassador Chen's demonstration." "Either way, Captain, You have your orders. Get to New Geneva, assess the damage, and find out exactly what we're dealing with. And Marcus, if you're right about the railguns, we need to know how to stop them. As the determination jumped to hyperspace, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The hegemony had always been dangerous with their superior numbers and aggressive tactics, but now they had humanity's most devastating weapon, and they were using it against a galaxy that had refused to take the threat seriously. In her quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel returning to Earth, Sarah Chen sat staring out at the stars. She had tried to warn them. She had stood before the greatest minds in the galaxy and explained exactly why railgun technology needed to be controlled, and they had laughed. Now those same species would learn the hard way what humans had known for decades. In space, there is no armor thick enough to stop a chunk of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The galaxy was about to discover that the primitive humans and their throwing stones had created the ultimate weapon, and the hegemony was just getting started. The physics of destruction, Captain Marcus. Webb stood in the ruins of New Geneva colony, his boots crunching on crystallized debris. Through his helmet's HUD, he could see the hole, a perfectly circular tunnel that went straight through the space station, the asteroid it was built on, and out the other side into empty space. Preliminary scan complete. Captain, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, his science officer. The tunnel is 2.3 meters in diameter and extends for approximately 15 kilometers through solid rock. Whatever made this was moving at roughly 12% of light speed. Marcus whistled softly. 12%? That's faster than our fastest railgun prototypes. Sir, interrupted his tactical officer. Commander James Foster, you need to see this. Foster led him to what had been the colony's main defense platform. The massive plasma cannon arrays were untouched. But there was another hole, this one much smaller, maybe 10 centimeters across, punched straight through the power core. They didn't just destroy the station, Foster explained. They surgically disabled every defensive system first. Single shots to each power core, shield generator, and communication array. Then they put the big one through the civilian sections. Marcus felt sick. How many survivors? 43 out of 12,000 residents. They were in the mining tunnels when the attack happened. A new voice crackled through the comm system. Captain Webb, this is Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez aboard the research vessel Newton. We've completed our analysis of the projectile fragments. Go ahead, Doctor. What we're seeing doesn't make sense. The fragments are standard tungsten steel alloy, but they've been shaped with microscopic precision. Each projectile was designed for a specific target. The small ones were armor-piercing for precise shots. The big one was designed to fragment after penetration for maximum destruction. Marcus closed his eyes. It was worse than he had thought. They're not just using railgun technology. They're perfecting it. Back on Earth, in the secure briefing room beneath Defense Command headquarters, the mood was grim. Admiral Rodriguez stood before a holographic display showing the hegemony's advance through the outer rim systems. In the past week, they've destroyed 17 colonies and 4 major defense installations, she reported to the assembled officers. Each attack follows the same pattern. Single shots from extreme range, precision targeting of defensive systems, then systematic destruction of civilian targets. General Harrison, head of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward. How are they targeting so precisely? Our railguns require massive computational power to hit anything at those velocities. That's the question, Rodriguez replied. Dr. Chen from the Science Division has some theories. Dr. Michael Chen, no relation to Ambassador Sarah Chen, activated his own holographic display. Based on the attack patterns, we believe the hegemony has developed an advanced targeting AI. Their shots are coming from distances of over 50 million kilometers, but they're achieving accuracy within centimeters. A murmur ran through the room. 50 million kilometers was beyond the range of any conventional weapon and beyond the effective range of most sensors. But here's the real problem, Dr. Chen continued. They're not just using single railguns. Each ship appears to be equipped with multiple accelerator arrays. Our analysis suggests they can fire dozens of projectiles simultaneously, each with different velocities and targeting priorities. Admiral Rodriguez took over again. The Outer Rim governments are starting to panic. The Altarian Republic has already offered to surrender if the hegemony promises to spare their civilian populations. 3 systems have gone completely dark. We don't know if they've been destroyed or if they're hiding. Commander Sarah Foster, Marcus Webb's sister and Earth's top military strategist, stood up. What about our own railgun defenses? That's our next problem, Rodriguez replied. Our railgun technology is still in prototype phase. We have maybe a dozen functional units, and they're all planet-based. The hegemony is attacking from ships, which means they've solved the power and cooling problems we're still working on. Dr. Chen brought up another display. We've identified the likely source of their breakthrough. 3 months ago, after Ambassador Chen's presentation to the Galactic Council, someone accessed the classified sections of our railgun research database. The room fell silent. Finally, General Harrison spoke up. You're saying we have a spy? Not necessarily. The access was traced to Admiral Thex of the Hegemony Fleet, but it was done through official diplomatic channels. Apparently, the Council granted him research access as part of their scientific exchange program. Rodriguez slammed her hand on the table. They gave him our classified weapons data as part of a scientific exchange? It gets worse, Dr. Chen continued. The Council's decision was based on their assessment that railgun technology posed no significant threat. They classified it as primitive kinetic research and made it available to any member species requesting scientific data. Commander Foster shook her head. So not only did they ignore our warning, they actively gave our enemies the tools to destroy us. The question now, Rodriguez said, is what do we do about it? The hegemony has our technology, but they've improved it beyond our current capabilities. They have more ships, more resources, and a 3-month head start. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. They all knew the math. Humanity had always been the smallest member of the Galactic Council. With limited resources and a tiny fleet, they had survived by being smarter, more innovative, and by forming alliances with other species. But now their greatest innovation had been turned against them, and their potential allies were either dead, hiding, or surrendering. Finally, Commander Foster spoke up. There is one advantage we still have. What's that? We know something about railgun technology that the hegemony doesn't. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Which is? Foster smiled grimly. We know how to stop them. Meanwhile, aboard the hegemony flagship Dominator, Admiral Thex reviewed the latest battle reports with satisfaction. His fleet had destroyed 4 more systems in the past day, and the terror was spreading faster than his ships could travel. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, a younger hegemony warrior named Kiss, the next target is the Proxima Defense Station. Intelligence suggests it's defended by 3 battleship groups and a planetary shield array. Thex's scaled lips curled into what passed for a smile among his species. How long will it take our conventional forces to break through those defenses? Approximately 6 hours of sustained bombardment, assuming moderate casualties. And with our new weapons? 4 minutes, sir. Maybe less if we target the shield generators first. Thex nodded approvingly. The human technology had exceeded even his expectations. What the stupid mammals had failed to realize was that railgun technology wasn't just about throwing metal at high speeds. It was about physics itself becoming a weapon. At the velocities his weapons could achieve, even tiny pieces of debris became devastating projectiles. Energy shields, armor plating, even planetary atmospheres, nothing could stop pure kinetic energy. Kiss, prepare the fleet for immediate jump to Proxima and send a message to our advanced scouts. What message, Admiral? Thex's yellow eyes gleamed. Tell them to begin targeting Earth's colonies. It's time to show the humans what happens when you try to warn the galaxy about superior beings. As the hegemony fleet disappeared into hyperspace, none of them noticed the small human stealth ship that had been shadowing them for weeks. Aboard the Shadow, Captain Elena Rodriguez, Admiral Rodriguez's daughter, finished recording the enemy fleet's capabilities and turned to her crew. Did you get all that? Her science officer nodded. Every targeting sequence, every power signature, every tactical pattern. The data is already being transmitted to Earth. Elena smiled. The hegemony thought they understood railgun technology, but they were about to learn that humans hadn't survived this long in a hostile galaxy by showing all their cards at once. The real war was just beginning. When physics becomes war. Defense of Proxima Station lasted exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds, Captain. Marcus Webb watched the tactical display from his command chair aboard the Determination as the hegemony fleet materialized at the edge of the system. 12 massive battleships, each twice the size of anything in the human fleet, arranged themselves in a perfect attack formation. Range to enemy fleet, Marcus asked. 62 million kilometers and closing, replied Lieutenant Kim. That's impossible, muttered Commander Foster. No weapon system has that kind of effective range. They were about to learn otherwise. The first salvo came without warning. On the tactical display, Marcus watched as dozens of tiny dots separated from the hegemony ships. Not energy beams or plasma bolts, but solid projectiles moving at velocities that made his instruments struggle to track them. The Proxima defense fleet never had a chance. The first battleship, the Invincible, simply opened up. A tungsten rod, moving at 15% of light speed, punched through its forward shields, armor plating, and hull like they weren't there. The kinetic energy release was so massive that secondary explosions tore the ship apart from the inside. Jesus, whispered Foster. The Invincible is gone. Just gone. But the hegemony wasn't finished. Marcus watched in horror as surgical strikes disabled each of the remaining ship's weapons and engines, leaving them helpless but intact. Then came the systematic destruction of Proxima Station itself. Captain, Lieutenant Kim's voice was shaking. I'm reading massive kinetic impacts on the station's hull. Multiple projectiles, different sizes, all hitting critical systems. The station's shields flared and died. Its weapons fell silent. Then, with clinical precision, the hegemony began targeting the civilian sections. Get us out of here, Marcus ordered. Emergency jump to Earth. Sir, what about the survivors? Marcus closed his eyes. There wouldn't be any survivors. Not after what he had just witnessed. As the Determination fled through hyperspace, its computers automatically transmitted the battle data to Earth Defense Command. The numbers were terrifying. Projectile velocities up to 18% of light speed, accuracy within centimeters at ranges exceeding 60 million kilometers, and targeting systems that could track and engage dozens of targets simultaneously. On Earth, Admiral Rodriguez stared at the incoming data with growing desperation. The outer rim was collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. In just 2 weeks, the hegemony had destroyed or captured 47 star systems, and they were accelerating their advance toward the core worlds. Ma'am, reported her aide, we're getting surrender offers from the Centauri Alliance and the Wolfpack systems. They're asking if we can guarantee the hegemony will accept their surrender. Tell them we can't guarantee anything, Rodriguez replied grimly. The hegemony doesn't seem interested in accepting surrenders. It was true. Intelligence reports suggested that even systems offering immediate capitulation were being systematically destroyed. The hegemony wasn't just conquering territory, they were eliminating potential opposition entirely. Admiral, Dr. Chen's voice interrupted her thoughts. We've completed our analysis of the Proxima battle data. Give me the bad news, Doctor. It's worse than we thought. The hegemony isn't just using our railgun technology, they've fundamentally improved it. They're using sequential acceleration techniques that we haven't even theorized yet. Rodriguez frowned. Explain that in terms I can understand. Instead of a single long accelerator, they're using multiple shorter ones in sequence. Each stage adds velocity while allowing for course corrections. It's like having a dozen railguns in a row, each one making the projectile faster and more accurate. How is that possible? The power requirements alone. That's the breakthrough, Admiral. They've solved the power storage problem using crystalline matrices derived from their homeworld's unique mineral deposits. They can store and release massive amounts of energy almost instantaneously. Admiral Rodriguez sat down heavily. So they have better technology, more ships, and our weapons. Anything else? Dr. Chen hesitated. There's something else. The targeting patterns suggest they're not just aiming at our ships. They're learning. Learning what? Our tactics, our defensive strategies, our weaknesses. Each battle, they're adapting faster than we can adjust our defenses. It's like they have an AI that's specifically designed to counter human military thinking. Before Rodriguez could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. "Admiral," shouted the communications officer. "Priority alert from the outer perimeter. The hegemony fleet has been detected entering the Sol system." The command center fell silent. Sol system meant Earth's solar system. The war had just arrived at humanity's doorstep. "How many ships?" Rodriguez asked quietly. "Sensors show 47 battleships, sir, including Admiral Thex's flagship." Rodriguez closed her eyes. Earth's entire defense fleet consisted of 23 ships, most of them smaller than a single hegemony battleship. And now they knew that size didn't matter, not against weapons that could punch through anything at the speed of physics itself. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the hegemony flagship." "Put it through." Admiral Thex's scaled face appeared on the main screen, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Admiral Rodriguez of the pathetic Earth forces. I am Admiral Thex of the hegemony fleet. You will surrender your system immediately, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy should have listened to your warning." Rodriguez straightened in her chair. "This is Admiral Rodriguez. Earth does not surrender to alien invaders." Thex's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. Observe." The transmission cut to an external view showing one of Earth's outer defense platforms, a massive structure mounting plasma cannons and missile batteries. As Rodriguez watched, a single projectile streaked across the screen, moving so fast it was barely visible. The defense platform simply ceased to exist, replaced by an expanding cloud of debris. "Your weapons cannot reach us at this distance," Thex continued. "Your shields cannot stop our projectiles. Your armor cannot absorb the kinetic energy we can deliver. You have approximately 1 hour to begin evacuating your core population centers before we demonstrate the full capabilities of the technology you so foolishly tried to restrict." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Commander Foster was the first to speak. "Admiral, we need to evacuate Earth immediately." "With what ships?" Rodriguez replied. "The hegemony can destroy our evacuation fleet as easily as they destroyed that platform." "Then what do we do?" Rodriguez turned to Dr. Chen. "Doctor, you said earlier that we still had one advantage over the hegemony. What did you mean?" Dr. Chen looked uncomfortable. "Well, ma'am, it's more of a theoretical advantage." "I'll take theoretical at this point. The hegemony has perfected offensive railgun technology, but they've made one critical assumption, that railguns can only be used as weapons." Rodriguez frowned. "What else would you use them for?" Dr. Chen smiled for the first time in weeks. "Defense, ma'am. What goes up must come down, and what comes at you very, very fast can be redirected somewhere else entirely." Meanwhile, aboard the Shadow, Captain Elena Rodriguez received an encrypted transmission from Earth Command. Her orders were simple: get close enough to the hegemony flagship to deploy the prototype device her ship had been carrying. "Ma'am," asked her tactical officer, "what exactly is this device supposed to do?" Elena checked the sealed orders one more time. "According to this, it's going to show the hegemony why humans didn't just invent railgun technology, we perfected it." As Earth's defense fleet prepared for what might be humanity's final battle, nobody noticed the small modifications that had been made to the planet's orbital defense grid over the past 3 months. Nobody except the engineers who had installed them. And they weren't talking. The hegemony was about to learn that when humans said they had warned the galaxy about railgun technology, they had been very, very specific about which aspects of that technology they were warning about. The art of defensive physics, Admiral. Thex watched with satisfaction as Earth's pathetic defense fleet arranged itself in a standard protective formation around their home world. 23 ships against his 47 battleships, it would hardly qualify as a battle. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer Kiss, "the human fleet is moving to intercept us at range of 40 million kilometers." "Let them come," Thex replied. At that range, our weapons will tear them apart before they can even target us effectively. But something was bothering him about the human formation. Instead of the usual defensive screen, their ships were arranged in a strange pattern, almost like they were trying to create a corridor leading directly toward Earth. Kiss, are you seeing this formation? Yes, sir. It appears tactically unsound. They're leaving obvious gaps in their defensive line. Thex's yellow eyes narrowed. Humans were many things. Primitive, weak, emotional, but they weren't stupid. Admiral Rodriguez had earned her reputation fighting against superior odds, and she wouldn't make such an obvious tactical error unless... Sir, shall we commence the attack? Wait, Thex ordered. Something was wrong here, but he couldn't identify what. Scan the human ships for unusual energy signatures. Scanning. Sir, I'm detecting massive power buildups in several of their vessels, but not in their weapons systems. Then where? Unknown, sir. The power signatures don't match anything in our database. Before Thex could respond, the human fleet opened fire. But instead of targeting his ships, their weapons fired straight past the hegemony formation into empty space. What are they doing? Kiss asked, confused. I don't know, but... Thex was interrupted by an urgent alert from his sensors officer. Admiral, multiple projectile launches detected from Earth's surface. On the tactical display, dozens of small objects were accelerating away from Earth at incredible speeds, but not toward the hegemony fleet. Instead, they were following complex trajectories that seemed to serve no tactical purpose. Sir, should we target those projectiles? No, they're not aimed at us. Let the humans waste their ammunition. But Thex's unease was growing. The projectiles were moving at velocities that matched his own railgun technology. How had the humans achieved those acceleration rates from planetary launches? Aboard the Determination, Captain Marcus Webb watched his tactical display with growing admiration for whoever had planned this operation. All ships, maintain formation and continue firing sequence 7. Sir, we're expending our ammunition reserve shooting at nothing, Commander Foster pointed out. Trust the plan, Marcus replied, though he wasn't entirely sure what the plan was himself. His orders had been specific. Maintain the corridor formation, fire at predetermined coordinates in space, and wait for the signal. On Earth's surface, Dr. Chen monitored the orbital defense grid from a bunker deep beneath Defense Command. The modifications his team had spent months installing were finally being put to the test. Dr. Chen, reported his lead engineer, all orbital platforms are online. Power levels at maximum sustainable output. Confirmed. Railgun arrays are loaded and tracking. Initiating defensive sequence on my mark. What? The hegemony didn't know. What nobody, outside of Dr. Chen's team, knew was that Earth's orbital defense platforms had been converted into the largest railgun array ever constructed. But instead of firing outward at enemy ships, they were designed for something much more elegant. Sir, Admiral Thex's sensors officer called out urgently, I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system. What kind of anomalies? The projectiles the humans fired. They're not following ballistic trajectories. They're accelerating and changing course. Thex stared at the tactical display in growing horror. The seemingly random projectiles the humans had launched were now moving in complex patterns throughout the solar system, and each one was accelerating to velocities that should have been impossible to sustain. How are they powering those projectiles? Unknown, sir. But Admiral, they're starting to converge on our position. That's when Thex realized what the humans had done. The projectiles weren't independently powered. They were being accelerated by a series of magnetic field generators positioned throughout the system. Each time a projectile passed near one of the hidden platforms, it received another boost of kinetic energy. Evasive maneuvers, Thex shouted. All ships, scatter formation! But it was too late. The human projectiles weren't just aimed at his ships, they were aimed at where his ships would be after taking evasive action. The humans had predicted his tactical responses and pre-positioned their weapons accordingly. The first projectile struck the hegemony ship, Conqueror, amidships. The tungsten rod, now moving at 22% of light speed after multiple accelerations, released more kinetic energy than the ship's entire reactor output. The Conqueror didn't just explode, it disintegrated. Return fire, Thex commanded. Target Earth's orbital platforms. His ships fired dozens of projectiles at the human defense grid, but something impossible happened. Instead of impacting the platforms, the hegemony projectiles began changing course, their trajectories bending as they encountered powerful magnetic fields. "Sir, our projectiles are being deflected." Dr. Chen smiled as he watched the hegemony weapons being redirected away from their targets. "That's the thing about magnetic acceleration," he muttered to his team. "What accelerates one way can be decelerated another way or redirected entirely." The human orbital platforms weren't just railguns, they were massive magnetic field generators capable of manipulating any metallic projectile that came within range. The hegemony's own weapons were being turned back on them. "Admiral," Kiss shouted aboard the Dominator, "the humans are using our own projectiles against us." Thex watched in disbelief as his ship's railgun rounds were captured by Earth's magnetic fields, accelerated to even higher velocities, and redirected toward his fleet. The Devastator took 3 of its own projectiles in rapid succession and broke apart like a child's toy. But the humans weren't finished. Throughout the Sol system, hidden railgun platforms began revealing themselves. Asteroids split open to reveal massive accelerator arrays. Space stations that had appeared to be simple mining operations suddenly bristled with magnetic launches. Even some of the evacuation ships fleeing Earth turned out to be disguised weapons platforms. "How many railguns do they have?" Thex demanded. "Sir, I'm counting over 200 separate launch signatures. They've turned their entire star system into a weapon." That's when Admiral Thex understood the true meaning of Ambassador Sarah Chen's warning to the Galactic Council. Humans hadn't been trying to restrict railgun technology to prevent other species from developing it. They had been trying to prevent other species from stumbling into a war they weren't prepared to fight. The humans had spent decades perfecting not just offensive railgun technology, but defensive applications that turned physics itself into a shield. They could redirect incoming projectiles, accelerate their own weapons using gravitational assists, and coordinate attacks across entire star systems using predictive targeting algorithms. "Sir, we've lost 9 ships. Recommend immediate retreat." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Thex considered retreat, but then his pride reasserted itself. "No, we still outnumber them. Concentrate all fire on Earth itself. If we can't destroy their fleet, we'll destroy their world." Every remaining hegemony ship turned its railguns toward the blue-green planet at the center of the human formation. Dozens of projectiles, each moving at a significant fraction of light speed, converged on Earth's location. Dr. Chen watched the incoming barrage and smiled. "All orbital platforms execute Protocol 7. Sir, are you sure?" "Protocol 7 has never been tested at this scale." "Do it." Around Earth, every orbital platform synchronized its magnetic field output. Instead of individual deflector shields, they created a single, massive magnetic field that encompassed the entire planet. The hegemony projectiles, expecting to impact solid matter, instead encountered a magnetic field so powerful it could bend space itself. The projectiles didn't just get deflected, they got accelerated back toward the hegemony fleet at velocities approaching 25% of light speed. Admiral Thex had just enough time to realize that humans had turned his entire attack into a gravity-assisted railgun shot before his flagship exploded around him. In the aftermath, as debris from the hegemony fleet drifted through the Sol system, Admiral Rodriguez opened a communication channel to the surviving enemy ships, attention remaining hegemony vessels. "This is Admiral Rodriguez. You have 2 choices. Surrender immediately, or learn why humans tried to warn the galaxy about the true capabilities of railgun technology." The response came quickly. "We surrender." But even as Earth celebrated its victory, Rodriguez knew this was just the beginning. The hegemony fleet had been defeated, but the hegemony empire still controlled dozens of star systems and hundreds of ships. And now they knew that humans possessed weapons technology far beyond what anyone had imagined. The real war was about to begin. The galaxy learns 6 months after the Battle of Sol. Ambassador Sarah Chen once again stood before the Galactic Council. But this time, the Great Hall was silent, and every delegate was paying attention. The holographic display behind her showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked territory controlled by the Hegemony Empire. Blue zones showed systems under human protection, and scattered throughout the map were green zones, systems that had declared neutrality and were desperately trying to stay out of the conflict. "Honored delegates," Sarah began, "6 months ago I stood in this chamber and warned you about the dangers of unrestricted railgun technology. You laughed. Today, 43 star systems lie in ruins, and over 2 billion beings are dead." The Vothan High Commander, whose own home system now bore a small red mark on the display, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Ambassador Chen, the Council acknowledges that perhaps we underestimated the potential applications of magnetic acceleration technology." Sarah's expression didn't change. "You didn't underestimate it. You ignored it. And when you granted Admiral Thex access to our classified research, you armed a genocidal empire with weapons they never could have developed on their own." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Council's role in the current crisis had become a major source of controversy as the war spread. The Zephyrian delegate, the tree-like being who had mocked humanity's primitive weapons, rustled its leaves nervously. The Council acted according to established protocols for scientific exchange. "How were we to know?" "Because we told you," Sarah interrupted. "We explained the physics. We demonstrated the capabilities. We specifically warned you about the military applications. You chose not to listen." She activated the holographic display, showing footage from recent battles. The Council watched in horrified silence as hegemony ships systematically destroyed refugee convoys, obliterated civilian infrastructure, and targeted population centers with surgical precision. "This is what uncontrolled railgun proliferation looks like," Sarah continued. "The hegemony has used our technology to perfect the art of planetary bombardment. They can crack a world's crust from a light hour away. They can sterilize entire continents with precision strikes, and they learned how to do it from data you gave them." Fleet Admiral Chen, recently promoted after the Battle of Sol, stepped forward. "The human fleet has been working to protect civilian populations throughout the affected sectors. But we're fighting a defensive war against an enemy that has had months to entrench themselves and adapt our technology." The Council speaker, its tentacles writhing in what might have been distress, leaned forward. "What does humanity require from the Council?" Sarah smiled grimly. "First, immediate military support from all member species. The hegemony won't stop with human space. They're already probing the defenses of the Altarian Republic and the Centauri Alliance. And second, ask the Vothan delegate, complete technology sharing. Every species contributes their military innovations to a joint research project. The hegemony is adapting faster than any single species can counter. We need combined technological superiority." The chamber erupted in debate. Several species objected to sharing their classified military secrets. Others questioned humanity's right to demand such cooperation after keeping railgun technology secret for decades. But Admiral Elena Rodriguez, now commanding the Joint Human-Alien Task Force, had been monitoring communications throughout the hegemony territories. "Delegates, with respect, you don't have time for debate. Our intelligence indicates that the hegemony is preparing for a major offensive. Target the core worlds." The chamber fell silent. The core worlds included the home systems of most major species, including Earth, the Vothan hegemony's original targets, and the Council chambers themselves. "How long do we have?" asked the speaker. Elena consulted her datapad. "Based on their current build-up patterns, we estimate 6 weeks before they can launch a coordinated assault on multiple core worlds simultaneously." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. 6 weeks to organize a defense against an enemy that had spent months perfecting the galaxy's most devastating weapons technology. The Krillian delegate, whose massive frame had dominated the chamber for decades, stood slowly. "The Krillian Republic pledges its full military support to the joint defense effort. Our shipyards and our fleets are at your disposal." One by one, other species began voicing their support. The Altarians offered their advanced shield technology. The Zephyrians promised their long-range sensor networks. Even the secretive gas beings from Nexus Prime agreed to share their quantum communication systems. But Sarah Chen wasn't finished. There's something else you need to understand. The hegemony isn't just using our railgun technology, they're improving it. Each battle they adapt, each engagement they learn. We've identified at least 3 major innovations they've developed independently. She activated a new display showing hegemony weapon signatures. They've created self-correcting projectiles that can adjust their course mid-flight. They've developed cluster munitions that separate into multiple targetable warheads. And most dangerous of all, they've learned to use asteroid fields and planetary rings as ammunition sources. Admiral Rodriguez nodded grimly. The hegemony no longer needs to carry projectiles. They're turning entire star systems into weapons by accelerating local debris, asteroids, ice chunks, even space dust. Everything becomes a potential railgun round. The chamber buzzed with frightened conversations as delegates realized the full scope of the threat. The hegemony hadn't just stolen human technology, they had weaponized the physics of space itself. However, Sarah continued, raising her voice over the noise, humanity has not been idle during these past months. We've been developing countermeasures. The chamber quieted as she activated another display. I'd like to introduce Project Redemption, humanity's answer to hegemony railgun supremacy. On the screen appeared something that looked like a massive space station, but its design was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Instead of the typical rotating habitats or defensive platforms, this structure was built around a central core that extended for kilometers in both directions. This is the first Redemption-class defense platform, Sarah explained. It's not just a railgun, it's a gravitational manipulator capable of bending space-time itself. Dr. Michael Chen stepped forward to provide the technical details. The platform uses controlled gravitational fields to create what we call physics corridors, regions of space where the laws of motion can be selectively modified. Incoming projectiles don't just get deflected, they get trapped in recursive loops, accelerated beyond their structural limits, or redirected with enough force to send them back through hyperspace. The Council delegates stared at the display in amazement and growing fear. If humanity could build weapons that manipulated gravity itself, what did that make them? Admiral Rodriguez addressed their concerns directly. The Redemption platforms are purely defensive. They cannot initiate attacks, only respond to them. But they can protect entire star systems from any kinetic weapon attack, regardless of velocity or number of projectiles. How many of these platforms can you build? Asked the Vorthan delegate. Sarah's expression grew serious. With current human resources, 3, maybe 4. But with full Council support and shared technology from all member species, we could have 20 operational within 5 weeks. The chamber erupted in debate once again. The technological implications were staggering. If the Council agreed to this project, they would essentially be giving humanity the tools to build weapons that could manipulate fundamental forces of physics. But the alternative was facing the hegemony's improved railgun technology with conventional weapons, a battle they were almost certain to lose. Meanwhile, in the depths of hegemony space, Admiral Thex's replacement was reviewing intelligence reports about human military capabilities. Admiral Vrak, younger and more aggressive than his predecessor, smiled as he read the latest data. So the humans think they can hide behind gravity shields, he mused to his tactical staff. Have they forgotten that we have their complete technical specifications? His chief science officer, a brilliant hegemony engineer named Zos, looked up from his calculations. Admiral, our analysis suggests their new platforms may be more sophisticated than our stolen data indicates. Impossible. We have everything the humans know about railgun technology? Yes, sir, but... Zos hesitated. What if they didn't give us everything? What if the data they shared with the Council was deliberately incomplete? Vrak's yellow eyes narrowed. Explain. The humans are known for their strategic thinking. What if Ambassador Chen's warning wasn't trying to prevent other species from developing railgun technology? What if it was bait? The implications of this possibility sent a chill through the command center. If the humans had deliberately allowed their technology to be stolen, if they had anticipated this entire conflict and prepared accordingly, Then the hegemony might be walking into a trap on a galactic scale. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving reports from our advanced scouts. Human forces have been spotted installing large structures in 17 star systems along our projected advance routes. Vrak studied the tactical display showing the positioning of these mysterious human installations. They formed a perfect defensive corridor leading straight to the core worlds, almost as if the humans wanted to funnel the hegemony attack along specific routes. Zos, how long would it take us to analyze these installations and develop countermeasures? Without more detailed sensor data? Months, sir. But if we could capture one intact, do it. Divert 3 battle groups to take one of those installations. I want to know exactly what the humans are planning." As hegemony ships moved toward their first encounter with a redemption platform, both sides prepared for a battle that would determine not just the outcome of the current war, but the future balance of power in the galaxy. On Earth, Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Defense Command, watching as the first redemption platform was towed into position at the edge of the Sol system. The massive structure dwarfed even the largest battleships, its gravitational generators already beginning to warp space around it. Ambassador, Dr. Chen joined her at the window. "The Council has approved construction of 19 additional platforms. The first wave should be operational within 3 weeks. Sarah nodded, but her expression remained troubled. "Michael, do you ever wonder if we made the right choice?" "What do you mean?" 6 months ago, we tried to warn the galaxy about railgun technology. Now we're building weapons that make railguns look like toys. Are we saving the galaxy, or are we just escalating an arms race that will never end? Dr. Chen considered the question carefully. "Sarah, the hegemony forced this choice on us. We can either develop the tools to defend ourselves and our allies, or we can watch civilization collapse under the weight of uncontrolled kinetic warfare. But what happens after we win? What happens when every species in the galaxy knows that humans can build gravity weapons?" Before Dr. Chen could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. "Priority alert," announced the facility's AI. "Hegemony forces engaging Redemption Platform Alpha. All senior staff to the command center." As they rushed toward the command center, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to cross a line that would forever change their relationship with the rest of the galaxy. They had started this conflict trying to prevent the weaponization of physics. Now they were about to demonstrate that they had weaponized physics itself. The Battle of Redemption Platform Alpha was about to begin, and its outcome would determine whether humanity's warning to the galaxy would be remembered as prophecy or as the first shot in a war that would reshape the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. In the command center, Admiral Rodriguez was coordinating with the platform's AI system. "Platform Alpha, report status. All gravitational field generators online. Defensive matrices at full strength. 3 hegemony battle groups approaching at bearing 27 Mark 4. Estimated time to engagement, 14 minutes. Admiral Elena Rodriguez, commanding from her flagship positioned safely behind the platform, opened a channel to the hegemony forces. "Hegemony ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. You are approaching a restricted defensive installation. Turn back now or face the consequences." The response came quickly in Admiral Vrak's harsh voice. "Human Admiral, you cannot hide behind your toys forever. We will take your platform and learn all your secrets." Elena smiled grimly. "Admiral Vrak, you're about to learn why my mother tried to warn the galaxy about humanity's weapons technology. It wasn't the railguns you should have been worried about." As the hegemony ships closed to engagement range and began firing their improved railgun systems, the galaxy was about to witness the next evolution in warfare, and learn that when humans warned about the dangers of weaponizing physics, they had been speaking from experience.